Teaching artists around the world. Artists around the world. Teaching artists around the world. Artists around the world. Teaching artists around the world.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Lavett.
Hello.
Apologies for the technical difficulties.
Wouldn't be a modern world if we didn't have our technical difficulties.
I started reading part of your bio that you're an artist, a curator, author, MFA from University of the Arts, that you were one of the artists commissioned for the Time magazine women's cover in March 2020, that you have work in multiple collections, the Color Girls Museum being one of them, the African American Museum in Philadelphia, the Grant Hill and Petrucci family collections. So welcome to this conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. Anything for you.
So the bio tells a lot about you, but one question I have for you is, what about your background and your experiences do you think most inform your artistry?
I wouldn't say it was really one thing. I think in my case, it was about time, maturing in my process and how I approached my process and discovering what worked best for me. So could I be doing the same type of work, say 20, 30 years ago? I doubt it. Would I have been capable of doing it? Very likely. But being able to have the success at it, that really came with time, with meeting different people, connecting with different people, growing a love for history in general, which really took time. So,
what would you want folks to know about you that follow up to that question that informs who you are and why you do what you do?
Mainly, I'm a storyteller. I love telling great stories. I come from a family of storytellers. I think way back when, if you look at my African roots, there's a griot somewhere that looks like Maya Angelou, but sounds like me. So I think it's the fact that I approach my work as a way of visual storytelling, which is not uncommon for most African American artists. We tend to go that route because our stories were absent from the canon overall. But in my case, it's really the thing I hold on to the most, and it's most important to me with my work.
Right. Some people are saying that this is, quote unquote, a renaissance in terms of Black artists or Black artists engaged in the art world. What's your take on that?
I truly 100% agree that this is a renaissance. Unlike the previous Harlem Renaissance, where it was a scope of maybe about 5 to 6 years before it hit its peak later on, I think this has been slowly building. If you look back, even far back as to the 90s and the late 80s, even further back, if you look at the Basquiat's and the Spiral Group and all of these other art groups that kind of Africova that were always doing the work, putting the work in, but going unrecognized, but building this recognition within our culture as far as the artwork. It was always there. I do believe that a lot of what's going on politically has caused this more overall awakening to our work. People are like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize they were there. But it's just starting to really build speed. I've had more contacts because people are more eager as far as institutions, primarily white institutions, to have a presence of Black color in their locations than I ever did just a year or two ago. So yeah, it's definitely a renaissance. And you have so many different types of Black artists. You have where before it was more figurative artists. You have now figurative, you have abstract, you have non-representational. You know, there's so many different artists working out here, doing their thing, working in their own little bubble that's starting to bleed into one another. That it's really a great time to be a Black artist, if you ask me.
How has the pandemic impacted your work, or just in general first, but as a follow-up, your work and your productivity? There seems to be a either or extreme when I talk to different artists, where it has provided them with facility to create and produce maybe more than they had before, and others are, you know, in a sense, blocked by the pandemic.
With me, I believe it's been more productive. I tend to be one of those people that works. Well, you know, Michael, I work. Like, I'm always working on something. I did have to change gears quite a bit because I got locked out my studio. Anyone who's ever been to my studio know that's my creative lab. That's my think space. And in the beginning of the quarantine, I got locked out my studio. And because I got locked out my studio, I was forced to change gears and try to figure out a way to still work with the wood that is so important to my overall body of work, but do it smaller, because I was working here at home in my home office / studio space, a lot less square footage, less than a tenth of what I had in my regular studio. So I had to figure out how to work small and make small work look big. And so I started building what I call now the Quarantine Chronicles, where I'm building small wood slice pieces, small birchwood panel pieces, where I'm putting them together much like I would my standing fences, but they're all in part of this installation process that I'm currently working on.
Great. Can you talk a bit about your process?
My main process is all about research. I think any good artist, really, even if it's a slight moment of thinking, oh, I want to produce or make this, has some type of research, even if it's just a thought. For me, because my work is so focused on photos and found images, I really have to research the images. I can't just use any image. I want to make sure that the image adds to the narrative I'm trying to portray. So I start with research. Then after I do the research, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes it can be months, I build all of the photos together and put them in one folder on my computer. Then I'm getting them, deciding what scale I'm going to work. Am I going to do very small? Am I going to do very large? At that point, I consciously figure out what substrate I'm going to work on, whether it's going to be a fence panel, whether it's going to be birchwood, whether it's going to be a wood slice. And then from there, the creative juices just flow. So.
you mentioned fence panels, and we'll look at some of your work. I don't know, do you have your website up?
Let's see. Hold on. Let's see.
You can share a screen, or I
Yeah.
can. Okay.
Hold on, let me just go back here. I just had it, I lost it that quick. Here it is. Okay, so you have to kind of walk me through on how to share this. Okay, I see it. You guys see it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'll just start with the installation work. So this was one of my first installations with the wood fence panels. It was my actual MFA thesis show. With this show, I did 2 triptychs and 1 diptych. Triptych is 3, diptych is 2 panels attached together. Then at the base, you see dirt. The dirt is representative of the soil that African Americans toiled when we were brought over to be enslaved. The individual panels, the beauty of how I work is each panel can be switched out to tell different stories. So not all the work I create is meant to be standing or standalone pieces. Some of them are wall pieces. Some of them can be wall pieces or standalone pieces. Here is a current work. This work is titled Brown Girl Dreaming, and Brown Girl Dreaming is meant to be a wall hanging piece. The piece is, as it says here, 67 by 42. Well, actually it's 32. And then each of the pieces are different depending on how I decide to create them. These are the fence panels came about as a frustration. In grad school, I was told I really didn't want to work on canvas. It's very expensive. So I was looking for something that was a little different. And this is another installation. This one is at Weeksville Cultural Center, Heritage Cultural Center in Brooklyn. And let's see, this is one that was at the African American Museum in Philadelphia. This one is a standing and wall piece. It has image on both sides. And this is another one from the African American Museum's exhibit. I also have, and this is a recent show that's up right now at Syracuse University at their Community Folk Arts Center, which is an offsite gallery of theirs. This is a new work that I created to display the, at this point, 63 wood slice pieces I've created. Half of them have already sold. So in this show, I displayed 30 of them. And this work is called The Inheritance. It's kind of embodying the idea of my family legacy house, which is an old log cabin. And I wanted to show it as my two times great grandmother's bedroom, and this little vanity that she would have passed down from generation to generation. And these are the individual wood prices that are displayed there.
Beautiful. What would you say is your inspiration, or what do you aim to say? What I guess inspires? When I look at your work, it seems to be about family, ancestry, about legacy, history. What are some of your inspirations?
I get inspired by so much. I get inspired by a lot. I'm a big TV fan, movie fan. I read a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm working. So depending on what is currently in my wheelhouse, so to speak, right now. So like right now, I just finished reading the book Caste by Isabel Wilkerson. So that's very fresh in my mind, the idea of a class system that was replaced by racism in America. So when I'm working on work, I'm trying to work through that visually. A couple of weeks ago, if you had asked me, I just finished reading The Piano Lesson by August Wilson. So that kind of started me doing research on the different women portrayed in all of his plays. So in hopes that eventually that will become a new body of work. So I'm always looking to tell the story and embrace the story as a Black woman telling it the way I think the story should have been told. It's kind of sad that even with this renaissance with Black artists, most of the top Black artists for a long time were men. They were Black men, and Black women were always there, but we really didn't get the respect. We didn't get the attention. I don't even want to say respect. The respect was always there from our brothers, the Black brothers, but from the art world, it wasn't always recognized as it should have been. When people think about Spiral Group, they always remember Romare Bearden, Reginald Gammon, Richmond Bart. They remember them, but how many people remember Emma Amos? You know, they really don't always get what their male counterparts get when it comes to the art world. So overall, I think my work is very much about feminism. It's very much about women of color showing their strength. Because I am somewhat into sci-fi and fantasy, so I'm a huge Octavia Butler fan. So you'll see a little bit of Afrofuturism in the work. Some of the images look like the women have these kind of glittering or star-infused crowns. That's the whole idea of them being gods or goddesses in their own right. I kind of take bits and pieces of everything, and I try to overlap them in a way that anyone can sit there and look at a piece for at least a good 30, 40 minutes and pull a bunch of things out. So,
do you feel that your current work comments on current social, political issues?
Yeah, most definitely. I started, when the Quarantine Chronicles was ongoing, I started working on a few pieces. Let's see. I do have a couple of pieces with have a couple of works that are directly more political overall. This is not today. This is one of them. Powered Up. And where is she? My name is Breonna. I did 2 pieces about Breonna Taylor, only because that really hit me. That the story of Breonna Taylor, the story of Sandra Bland were very near and dear to my heart when it, the more I heard about their executions. So I started a Say Her Name series, so to speak. So I have My Name is Sandra. And as you can see, like if you look at her hair, the fact that she looks like she's almost kind of floating within a cosmos per se. Then I also have Hear My Call, which is Breonna again. And then I have this one here. My name is Kiana. This is the young lady who was shot in her own home. They thought she had mental illness and she was shot in front of her child. So I'm always looking at what's going on in the world. And a lot of times I like to look at my work as, how should I say, I recently did an interview and a reporter made a good point. She said my work, and I kind of tagged it as my own, but she said my work has a little bit of bitter and sweet. I like to show the sweetness in the colors, the florals, elevating women or Black people in a higher level, but you also see the bitter. You may see an image from the Birmingham Children's March. You may see an image from the burning of Tulsa within. So I like to show a little bitter with the sweet with the word. It's my way of kind of centering people. So.
Do you feel that that's maybe also part of your role as an artist?
Oh, definitely. I think every artist has a role. How should we say? It's part of your identity to be a storyteller in some way, form whatsoever. When you sit down, whether you're a literary artist, whether you're a musical artist, whether you're a dancer, your idea of expression is to tell somebody what you're feeling, what you're looking at, what you're seeing. And you being an artist is telling that story in one way or another. Some of us take it more literally, and like myself, but then there are other artists that do it more subtly. So.
Mm-hmm. You spoke earlier about several Black female artists. Who are your major influences?
Oh God, I can't pick one.
You don't have to pick one.
Oh God, that's like asking me who my favorite child is, or it changes so often. I have like people in the past who I always looked at. I always was a huge Elizabeth Catlett fan, huge. Faith Ringgold, I love her work. Emma Amos, I love her work. Who else? Oh God, Samuela Lewis, I love her work. Who else? Oh God, Betty Saar, Lorna Simpson, Deb Willis. I could go on and on. If you want to talk about living artists, besides those that I mentioned, there are living. I want to go to my sister circle. The best thing about getting to the level of success that I have, or I wouldn't even say success, I would say notoriety. You kind of end up in this club. So the people that I studied in grad school, those people who I admired and I saw in museums are now my friends. So I have this sister circle of friends. Some of them are people who are coming up at the same time as me, and some of them are people who are already there, and they're kind of like my aunties, my big sis, my, you know, I speak to, these are people I speak to very often, like Deborah Roberts. I speak to her often. Delita Martin, unbelievably crazy good printmaker. She's like my sister. Like I speak to her like pretty much every other day. There's also Bisa Butler, unbelievable, the Beyonce of printmaking. I mean, she's been like a mentor. She flip-flops from mentor to sister to auntie. Diane Smith, who was my mentor in grad school, who's like my big sis. Phyllis Stevens, who's like my big sis. Latoya Hobbs, I'm trying to think, who else am I missing? April Bay, so many. And now I have this little circle of them. So if I'm ever having issues, I'm like, yo, what do you think? Oh, girl, please, you can do this, or you can talk to this person. And I still have guys I speak to often. I speak to Alfred Conte every once in a while. And Najee Dorsey put me on the map, him and Black Art in America. I owe so much to him and his efforts with his website and his gallery. And of course, the people behind the scenes, the gallery, the gallerist that kind of push you forward, the art critics that push you forward. So all of those people help out. But I would say my biggest inspiration would have to be overall, like if I have to quote someone, it's usually Elizabeth Catton. Only because she was, between her and Alma Thomas, maybe, they were just unapologetic and they did what they did. And if you didn't like it, oh well. So.
You mentioned earlier your success, and it has been amazing just watching, your growth in your work and the different series and all the detail that you put into your pieces. And so as an artist, I think other artists are always interested in hearing how artists find opportunities, or how do they, in a sense, pursue success, whatever that means to them.
Well, that's the key, right? What does it mean to you? Some people think success is at the local art fair this summer in the park, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people think success is the city hall contacted me and I'm in a group show, and that's success. And it is success, no matter which way you put it. Every little step towards your goal. You have to decide how big you want the pond that you're going to swim in to be. If you want it to be a local artist and be well known for doing fantastic work, and if something happens to take you to the next level and you're ready, you go there. Or if you're going to say, listen, this isn't big enough for me, I have bigger aspirations, I think I can take on the ocean and swim with the sharks. You have to kind of decide that right off, and always keep that in mind as you're going through things, because you are going to come across people, especially when you're a local artist. You may run across someone who is a big artist and not even know it, and you already shoot yourself in the foot by bragging, talking, or whatever. So I find a quote that my grandmother wrote in my yearbook, and it's like my go-to quote: opportunities lost are never forgotten, so make the most of them when they arrive. I took a chance when I was my last year of grad school, and I sent an email to the Color Girls Museum, and I was scared. I was so scared when I presented this work that I had just started working on, and I don't know if it was you or Vashti that got back to me fairly quickly. And I went out to the Color Girls Museum, which if you haven't gone, believe me, it's like falling. I always describe it to people. It's like you're Alice in Wonderland and you kind of fall through the rabbit hole and you're like, whoa, what's going on? What's that? And, it's unassuming at first. And then you're like, wow. But the Color Girls Museum gave me like what I consider the first nationally recognized nod. They bought a piece of my work, and it was the first work I had started working on with this new type of format that honestly nobody had ever seen before. I was very new to it. It hadn't even been, my thesis work hadn't even been completed at that point. And you guys took a chance on it. And the work was highlighted big time throughout Philly. And the next thing you know, I'm hearing about people hearing about it in Georgia and in California. And it just kind of ran with it. So you got to take a chance sometimes. You got to step out your comfort zone and take risks. Don't be too cocky, but be self-assured. Connect yourself with other artists, whether they're artists of color or artists that are just people who are artsy, and look at art. That's very important. You got to look at all kinds of art. You don't look at art and you say you're an artist and you're just stuck in your studio just making and you're not looking at what's out there. You can be working for a year on a body of work and then you come out and boom, you find out 10 other people have been doing it for 2 years and you didn't even know because you were stuck in your hole. So you really have to look at other work and engage with other artists if at all possible. So, and don't be afraid to take criticism. That's big.
Absolutely. I remember that initial series, Hair Stories, and Sitting Pretty, which I think is one of your earlier fence pieces.
Yeah, you guys and it's funny because when I pull out the pictures from the hair pieces, which are very conceptual for me, I mean, people consider the fences conceptual, but for me going from more figurative work on the fences to something very abstract and sculptural, people are like, whoa, you do that too? And those pieces just got back to me a month ago. They were in Washington and they were a hit out there. They were out there at the Wanari Museum in Seattle. So they were written about in quite a few papers and magazines. And they were even in the Seattle Art Fair, which I didn't know about till later. But so it's one of those bodies of work that I can flip flop and be comfortable with. That's another thing. Work at what you know you're good at and continue working at what you're good at, because that 9 times out of 10 is going to what pays your bills. But don't be afraid to experiment with other art forms because you never know when someone's going to recognize that also. So
you talked about being available for opportunities. Do you have any particular strategies for identifying opportunities for yourself as a artist?
Before, if you asked me that like a year ago, I would just hustle. Now I have galleries that represent me, so they do a lot of the stuff like that for me. They're always letting me know this is what's going on or that's what's going on. Because I do read a lot, I read Artsy pretty much every day. I read Art News and Art Forum every day. So like right now, because it's Black History Month, everyone's on the Black bandwagon. So you're getting all kinds of articles about galleries that represent Black artists. You're getting people that collect Black art. So when I see something like that, especially about collecting, it's much like when I was in grad school. If I knew someone who was coming as a visiting lecturer and they were either a curator or an art collector or an administrator, I wanted to make sure they were going to come through my studio, because those are the people I want to know my work when I leave. It's great to talk to other artists to get their feedback, but I look at it as though at one point you're going to be my peer. You're not going to be the person that hires me. So yeah, they'll talk about your work to other people, especially if your work is similar to them or something that they really like. But you really want to connect with those administrators. That's really the big thing. You got to connect with an administrator. So I look at art right now. I just read an article yesterday about the top 100 or top 10 art collectors in art scene. So I immediately sent the article to both my galleries and I said, listen, I have a catalog, make sure they get them. So that's how it works.
And do you feel that your gallery representation helps you to navigate the art world?
Ooh, that's a toughie. That's a toughie because a lot of artists don't like it. They feel confined. Some artists are at a certain level in their career where they do have gallery representation, but they have a lot of flexibility. I had, because I'm an emerging artist, had to kind of build my own flexibility, with which galleries were going to represent me. So I did something unusual. I have one gallery that is known as a blue chip gallery, and it's in Indianapolis. That's Long Sharp, and Long Sharp does international shows, but they're more known for modern and contemporary art. I am one of only 3 Black artists that they show, and I'm the only one living. So they no, well, the other person is living, but they only show some work through there, and that's CM Gilliam. So they have CM Gilliam, and then they have myself, and that's it. But I chose them because they have international representation. They show international. They show in China, Japan, Europe. Then I chose Gallery Matisse, which is in Baltimore. Gallery Matisse has a strong foothold and has been doing the work longer than Long Sharp, but they're not blue chip. They're just getting there. And they are a Black gallery. So most of the people who they connect with are people of color that are celebrities, that are politicians, that are entertainers, writers, that type of clientele. So with them, I get a lot of notoriety within those circles. So I'm able to have both, the best of both worlds, so to speak. I did have to figure out how to split my inventory of available work, because I do have dual representation. But with that, not everyone could do that. Only reason I could was because my galleries were very good about working with each other. If you don't have the right galleries working with each other, that's not going to work for you.
And you're talking about the business of art, which very oftentimes a lot of artists have difficulty with.
Yeah. I really should do a workshop on it, because I can't tell you how many times people ask me, how did you get that? How did you get that? So it's tough. It's really tough.
Are there trends in the art world that you feel that you follow?
No, not really. Once you find your style that works for you, you tend to, I look at it as like, okay, I want to be the master of what I do. I want to be doing this for at least a good 10 years. where I can literally put together this work in my sleep. I'm not having so long to research. I'm not having so long to figure out how everything's going to work through. You can give me any type of subject matter and I'll be able to pull that into my own unique style. But I don't run into that issue, but so often. I'm sure artists do have that problem, but not me.
So in a sense of your work, I guess I'm interested in what culture do you consume? Like, if you're not painting, what interests you?
If I'm not painting?
Yes.
Ooh. Oh, God. I'm a big history show fan. Like, I love watching history shows or movies. Like right now, I'm watching Outlander for the second time, the whole series. I loved Bridgerton, not just because Reggae Jean is absolutely fine, but I watch those type of things. I'm I'm into social media, but that's part of the job. You have to do your social media due diligence at least 10 times a day, or you're not going to go anywhere. I read quite a bit. I'm reading 2 books. Like I said, I just finished Cast recently, and now I'm reading Barack Obama's book. And I'm also reading Cicely Tyson's book. But I'm audio listening to Barack Obama's book, and I'm reading Cicely Tyson's book. So I do that quite often. I find Audible books to be the best way for me to get my reading in, because I'm in the studio, I'm going back and forth. It's so much easier just to listen to the book rather than have to take the time and physically sit there and read. I do listen to quite a few podcasts, everything from Jill Scott's podcast to Michelle Obama's podcast to Studio Noise podcast. So I listen to music. I'm kind of old school when it comes to music. But besides that, I'm just doing the work. I like to cook every once in a while when I have time. But pretty much I just do the work. What?
Any particular cuisine?
I cook. I'm Southern girl at heart. So, I call myself the Southern version of Chopped. If you could give me a couple of ingredients, I'll figure out something to put together that's going to remind you of a big Southern kitchen dish. So I do love Asian cuisine. I love Italian. But Southern country cooking is probably my go-to. I like to bake every blue moon when I have the time. But I'm just pretty much just average. I have kids, I have grandkids. I'm running around after a granddaughter lately. So that keeps me busy on the weekends generally. But my only off time, actually the only thing that I do, now that I think about it, that I can say I will do for hours late at night if I want to totally vegetate, is I'm a big Sims fan. So anyone who knows Sims knows you'll say, oh, I'm going to do it for 20 or 30 minutes, and then 3 hours later, you just finished building your house, and now you want to have kids. So I'm a big virtual Sims fan. So.
You mentioned, I mentioned hair stories. Do you mind sharing that?
Sure. Let's see.
See, it's hot.
Hold on. Okay,
My husband and my money. Oh, I got my husband now. I got my money.
Okay. Sir, there you go, both of you. How many do you want?
Thank you.
How many?
I'm trying to find the better images of it.
Wait. This one looks good, you guys. This is how I think you enjoy fun. Bye-bye. Have fun.
Thanks.
Let's see. Okay.
Wait, what's happening?
Okay, so this is, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so this is one of the
Teresa, what'd you do?
first hair pieces I started working on. And I was using, this kind of came about from a point of frustration with my grad school experience. I believe it was my first year of grad school. And in all honesty, I had brought in, this was the work I brought into grad school, this and this. And they did not like it. I wouldn't say they didn't like it. They just described it literally as bad album covers, which hurt my heart because the records I was using was my father's old albums, and he had recently passed. So they did like the wood pieces I brought in, which were these, but they weren't thrilled on the painting of them. So I started looking at artists that worked with material, like Leonardo Drew, Theaster Gates, Lena Victor, Jakaya Booker, and I finally went and chose hair one weekend because I said, listen, I'm not going to paint anymore. I hate painting. They piss me off. So I was at the hair salon, hair store, beauty supply store buying hair to do my hair and get it braided. And there's this technique called crochet hair braiding. And I was looking at the hair on the wall, and it was something about the way the hair on the wall hung. And it looked beautiful to me. And I like the idea of crocheting the hair onto a crochet weft, which is what this is here with the grid. So I started crocheting it, and I developed this piece to your right, which is titled Four Little Girls, based on the 4 little girls in the bombing in Birmingham.
Wow.
And then I also created the piece to your left, which is titled Tangled. And they loved it. It was different. This is my hair chair, which was a chair I literally covered with hair.
Wow.
It's currently at the Colored Girls Museum. It's titled, Is the Seat Taken?
Okay.
And it was kind of a play on where a lot of Black women say when they travel, especially the Asian countries, people want to touch your hair, and how unique and how strange that is. And it's the whole idea of, is the seat taken? Can I touch your hair? It's the same idea. The hair ball started off the size of a, I would say a softball, and now it's easily the size of a beach ball.
Wow.
And that was the excess hair that I had in my studio from building the hair chair and the other hair pieces. And I had wound them around this ball and kept winding it and winding it. So now whenever I go to the hair as a medium, any excess hair, I still use that as my yarn ball. It's actually called,
What?
it's called, that'd be something.
I'm just worried they're going to call on me.
Top of my hair.
Yeah, because I raised my
Evolution of the
hand.
Naps. That's what it's called. So, and that piece is an ongoing piece, which I love. I love the idea that one day it's going to get too big to go into a room. So it's still growing. And that's really about it. And earlier I had mentioned a house. This is our family legacy house. This is really what inspired.
Can I get
the
some
wood
pizza
pieces.
from over here?
I used to go there every summer, and I would have to help my grandmother clean the house, building up to the Labor Day weekend. This is my two times great grandmother, Nanny.
Oh, I love that house.
Strange. And this is her husband. And I would have to clean the old photos, clean the house.
Ooh, that's pizza.
I didn't realize it at the time, but
Is it
the
cold?
wood from the log cabin and the wood from the house, I mean, the photos were really what was building my idea of what work I wanted to create.
We're going to open it up for questions. Does anyone have a question?
Yeah. There's questions in the chat, Michael. Whoa.
How long is this thing?
Lavett. We're like, which one is this? He doesn't. What do you do? Whoa.
Hello. Lavett, I think you're muted.
What?
Okay, you're good?
Yeah, so long as your camera was off.
There it goes. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys, someone had asked about my studio.
Yeah.
I saw in the comments.
Yeah.
This is basically my studio. It's an old classroom in a high school. It's fairly large.
There's a chat.
It is actually 2 rooms. You can't really see the other room, but I have the one large room. This is the left side, and this is the right side. And then I have another room that I utilize as my storage vault for the works. it works great because it was the chem lab. It has several sinks throughout, and it also has great lighting. This whole wall is full of windows on both sides, except for this one space here. So it's a really great space. The only complaint I have is the hours. Before the quarantine, my hours were ideal. I could be in there until very late, at least 12 o'clock. But now, because of the less hours that they allow the building to be open, I'm not able to do that as I used to. So that kind of sucks. So, that's it.
So that kind of sucks.
So is there any other? NATO asks, how do you find showing at Weeksville and the Color Girl Museum as very different kinds of cultural spaces to show in?
In the beginning, I sought out those locations, mainly because I was trying to build up my CV, and I knew I had a better chance showing at those spaces because they were geared to us, for us. That I do get a certain amount of pride showing in those spaces, because I know that more people of color are going to have opportunity to look at my work because of that, because they tend to go there more often. They tend to be intimidated by the bigger institutions like the Philadelphia Museum of Art, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So that is a draw. I do find that you want to have a happy balance between the two. You don't want to have more one than the other. So as of late, I've encouraged my galleries to really push for acquisitions and for predominantly white institutions. I've seen a lot more sales to those institutions, which is great because you get new eyes looking at the work. Let's see. Yes, the house is still in our family. It's 110 years old. We're trying to do a fundraiser kind of within the family to save the house because it is in quite a bit of disrepair. And we're trying to get it saved at this point. We are one of the few families that got our 40 acres and a mule. We have exactly 32 acres of land that house sits on.
Artists around the world, teaching artists around the world. Artists around the world, teaching artists around the world.